When you hear about Generation Z, you usually hear about random fights with millennials about M&M or skinny jeans, or you hear about us eating Tide Pods and bringing back nicotine addictions, or you hear about the young activists who belong in this generation. Movements such as March for Our Lives or Greta Thunberg's climate strikes have changed the way this generation has been characterized. Activism is one of the most well-known associations with this generation. So why is that? Well, according to CNN, this generation is the most racially and ethnically diverse generation yet. According to Pew Research, only a slight majority, 52%, of post-millennials are non-Hispanic white, compared to the large majority, 61%, for millennials 10 years earlier. Rachel Genfaza, the writer of this article, had some pretty good summed up background information about this generation. Born between the years of 1996 and 2010, Gen Zers have grown up in an era where gun violence is frequent, immigration is a hotly debated topic, and deteriorating climate is acknowledged as a crisis. They are now coming of age during a global pandemic that is disproportionately affecting Black and Brown communities. And I'm sure being born into or growing up in a post-9/11 climate, historical elections, the age of the internet, a larger-than-life wealth gap, etc., has shaped the way that Gen Z sees the world. It is pretty obvious that Gen Z is growing up in a unique landscape. Not only are we growing up in a very scary political climate, but the way that we talk about politics has drastically changed over a decade or so. The emergence of social media has altered the bounds of communications forever. In the same CNN article, a communications professor at the University of Southern California talked about this. Digital media can be a space that scrambles geography and racial backgrounds by bringing people together around shared interests rather than where you live. We see that partnerships are emerging. Having powerful thoughts about the scary world that you're living in, coupled with an easy means of communication, seems like the perfect combination for activism. Jacqueline Corinne, a survivor of the Parkland shooting and a co-founder of the March for Our Lives movement, had something to say about the generation's specific standing. Gen Z not only has social media tools to connect with one another in an instant, but we also have this culture where we are also willing to fight for each other. This is one of the most understanding and empathetic generations we've ever seen. We are making this collective fight, and we understand that if something doesn't affect us immediately, it might affect people in our community, or people in our generation that we might not even know. Gen Z is not only experiencing their own lives and personal challenges, but challenges of people across the world. Gen Z is the most globally connected generation we've ever seen. And for the most part, that seems like a good thing. We're able to share our own experiences to an audience, but also have every atrocity of the world at our fingertips. It seems like this generation was made to leave an impactful footprint on this country's politics. The climate that we grew up in and the tools that we were given made us equipped for activism. Another take that I've seen a lot is the reason why Gen Z is so involved in activism is because of the fiction that we grew up on. Things like Avatar: The Last Airbender or Percy Jackson or the entire dystopian novel era had major fan bases. They were all about young kids destroying corrupt governments. So not only does Gen Z have all this public discourse that they're seeing, but they also have a game plan laid out for them in their favorite cartoon. Gen Z was taught at a young age that if you don't like what's going on, then you can just destroy an entire oppressive government with a bow and arrow. In a Newsweek article by Anna Tenney, she talked about the parallels between Gen Z and the Hunger Games. Every day, kids are killed on the streets, in their schools, and at the movies. Politicians have done nothing to stop this ongoing massacre. Or perhaps it's not that inexplicable. They have chosen to stay complicit in this slaughter to keep their pocketbooks lined and the congressional seats warm. Are they that different from the Hunger Games President Snow, who raped dozens of children annually to placate to the masses? I don't know if it's exactly a coincidence that this generation grew up adoring Katniss Everdeen and is known for their activism, or that Avatar: The Last Airbender was trending #1 on Netflix at the same time as a BML protest. Even though I love me some Catching Fire and I grew up on Avatar, I do think this has done some damage. Scrolling through Instagram and Twitter during the Black Lives Matter protest made me realize this. Last spring, a lot of us were going through the scariest moments of our lives. In May, we were a couple months deep into a pandemic, which caused a surge in unemployment, and a lot of people were ripped away from their school. This was a loss of security and sanity for a lot of us. Or most of us. Or all of us. Definitely the sanity part for sure. We were also in the middle of an election year, with Donald Trump not only being a candidate, but our president at the time. And then in late May, the world erupted into protests for George Floyd and the Black Lives Matter movement. There was a lot of things going on, and a lot of information going around that people wanted to learn about, but we were all at home. So here comes Gen Z. Like we discussed earlier, Gen Z is made for these type of things. Everyone needed to talk, but virtually, so that's when we saw an influx of infographics and Twitter threads and TikTok videos, which I feel like was great. We were all spreading awareness and I learned a bunch. But then things went left. During the Black Lives Matter protest, Trump was promoting a Juneteenth rally in Tulsa, Oklahoma, which was obviously a great feeling to see as a black person during that time, you know, with the protests and everything. Great. He did eventually change the date so that it was June 20th though. But while he was promoting, he kept saying that he sold 1 million tickets. Trump campaign manager Brad Parscale tweeted on June 14th that Saturday is going to be amazing, after saying that more than 800,000 people had signed up for tickets at the 19,000-seat Bank of Oklahoma Center. Trump kept tweeting about how this was going to be his biggest comeback ever and the biggest rally ever, which if you can remember, that did not happen at all. And that was because a lot of angry teenagers on the internet were not having it. I don't remember who initially proposed the game plan, but there was a TikTok video going around at the time of the event.
Guys, Donald Trump is having a rally next week and it's free. All you have to do is give your phone number and you can get 2 tickets. So I got 2 tickets, but I totally forgot that I have to pick every individual piece of lint off of my room floor and then sort them by size, so I can't make it for Friday. Oh well, I already got the tickets. And I accidentally just verified it too, so that means there's gonna be at least 2 empty spots. Guys, that's awful. You should be really careful going to do this, you know, just in case, you know, you can't make it. You know, you don't want a bunch of empty seats. And another thing, guys, if you are doing it, make sure to use the right zip codes just so that they know you are in the area.
So basically Trump's team saw that a bunch of people were buying the tickets and started bragging on social media. And then because a bunch of people bought the tickets and weren't intending on going, it was really embarrassing when he showed up and there was no one there. And this was a cute win for the storm that was the 2020 election. We got some great coverage of Trump coming back to the White House with a sad face, and that was great, you know, and it was all because of Gen Z and millennials. This was a fun time. This was great. We all laughed. But I think this is when Gen Z really started to lose it. I can only assume that Gen Z was a bit overstimulated with all the things that were going on between the Black Lives Matter protest and the Tulsa rally win, but a lot of people were feeling themselves. Basically, during the Black Lives Matter protest, there was a lot of videos going around of people, you know, twerking in front of police or throwing back tear gas containers or taking horses, which was fun to see. And a lot of Gen Zers ate that up. These videos are mostly black people of any ages, but I guess because it was becoming memeified and circulating around the internet that Gen Zers really identified with it. Now this is the birth of the Gen Z joke that was going around so much and I am scarred from. This joke was seen across all social media platforms and it followed this very basic formula. Basically it was like, Gen Z can't do X normal thing without having X anxious reaction, but can do blank to a cop. And that doesn't even sound like an interesting joke, but this is a moment for some Gen Zers.
Gen Z would apologize to Jerry for bumping into a through whilst the WWE body slam a cop. Gen Z body slamming cops versus asking for extra ketchup. Gen Z went from baking banana bread at the start of lockdown to body slamming cops 2 months later. Gen Z would do the absolute bare minimum MPD but have no problem field goal kicking the canister of tear gas back at cops. Now call that duality of man right there. Gen Z asking their parents if they can go to protests like, hey mom, can I join the revolution? Gen Z shouting yeet and throwing shit at cops. I love that Gen Z has this new group of bullying cops and tackling homophobes, but we all have crippling anxiety and can't order our own food. Generation Z will storm the White House, but they sweater asking to go to the bathroom. Generation Z will punch a cop in the face, but be afraid to make a doctor's appointment on the phone. Gen Z shake and cry during oral presentations, but will ruthlessly bully the police, National Guard, and the military without sweating.
I don't understand our generation. For example, today I drove by a cop and I literally rolled out my window and yelled ACAB. But then when I got to Starbucks, they gave me a hot coffee instead of an ice and I just walked away like a little bitch.
I think the most Gen Z thing I've ever done was volunteer at a Black Lives Matter protest, then get into a car and blast Lady Gaga on repeat while flipping off the police station that you drive by on your way to a McDonald's to get iced coffee and chicken nuggets.
My main problem with this joke is that one, it's annoying, and two, it really centers the individual in the movement. I know this was about Gen Z as a whole, but it really puts emphasis on the action of one person rather than what they're fighting for. Saying, oh my god, I'm so Gen Z because I'm the person who puts BML in their bio, I'm the person who says ACAB, I'm the person who body slams a cop, which I know y'all don't do, so anyway. But it was really about what I do instead of like the movement and what they're fighting for. I think this plays into the whole dystopian novel inspiration that I talked about before, because people really like imagining themselves as the brave hero that defeats the capital, but people don't understand the actual weight of what it means to sacrifice something for a cause. So privileged activists will start fantasizing about civil wars or the revolution. And I think that's because they can only interpret activism through the lens of fiction or dystopian novels, because a lot of it isn't real for them. So these people will daydream about flipping off cops and yelling ACAB because it's more appealing and easier to accomplish than actual liberation. And I literally don't understand what saying ACAB is doing for anybody. Like, yelling at an individual cop does nothing but then boost your ego. These cops are literally protected by the state to kill innocent people, and I doubt that yelling an acronym at somebody will do anything. A lot of Gen Zers fantasize about the lifestyle of activism to the point where it's completely aesthetic to them. This is where we see Hello Kitty says ACAB and Hello Kitty says eat the rich or whatever. I don't even know. It was like Hello Kitty saying a bunch of like leftist, I guess, slogans. And this is a whole thing that was created by, I guess, like white alt girls. I don't know, but they were eating this up. They were living for this, and it was like, I saw it on everyone's like profile pic for a while. But this was a major trend where people kept using motifs from our childhood to talk about the movement. I remember this petition that was floating around to make Manny from Die Remember Kid the new American flag. And like over 1 million people signed it. There was this whole movement of Manny will not be televised that was going around. And if you're not black, I don't think you understand like how offensive that is, especially during the Black Lives Matter movement. Like the song and the saying that comes from is a very important sentiment that has fueled a lot of moments of empowerment and sacrifice for the black community. So it's so messed up to use that for that entire movement to exist, or movement to exist. It's so stupid. And for black people, like, how are you being that insensitive? I don't understand. And it got to the point where petitions about actual black people getting murdered were not doing the same numbers as the Manny petition. Even the author of Die Remember Kid, Jeff Kenny, said that he didn't like the movement at all, that he was like, this is weird and is trivializing it. And people were generally like, no. Gen Z is a generation that cares, and we sign petitions and it's fine. Like, that's a good enough argument to make an ignorant meme. And this crazy idea that Gen Z is the first generation to care or to advocate for themselves is insane. Like, maybe if you're white you can say that, you know? Maybe your great-grandpappy was not down, Mima and Peepaw were not with the, you know, the movement. But I cannot say the same thing for my family's generations, because there are some generations of my family that were literal slaves. So I don't think that I'm the first one to care. You know, there's a picture of my house from like the 1900s, and it's a picture of my indigenous grandfather or great-grandfather and my black grandmother, and I can look at it and be like, oof, you know, I'm doing better than those two. And that's just because like they cared. BIPOC have been forced into the position to care and advocate for themselves for generations because no one else was trying to do that for them. This narrative that Gen Z is the only one who cares is so wrong, because the only reason why that we do care, that we have the tools to talk about it, is because people before us gave that to us. So just because you have the power to share things and make things go viral doesn't mean that you care more. And I don't think that having the internet inherently makes people more empathetic. Gen Z tends to conflate virality with activism all the time. People think that if you make one video that gets 1 million likes that's vaguely about a social justice topic, then you're good. Like you did all the work that you need to do. And I've seen so many videos on TikTok that just kind of rub me the wrong way. There's this particular topic that I kept saying do this about the Uyghur Muslim camps in China that I feel like kind of made me feel weird, and these are some of the videos.
China has 3 million Uyghur Muslims in concentration camps. Did you know that? The women are being raped, their children are being killed. World leaders knew that. Did you know that? We're watching a literal genocide happen right in front of our eyes. Misinformation's being spread purposefully, so you better go click the link in my bio and then go sign some petitions and then go donate to some orgs who are making a difference. While you're at it, maybe make a video too, cause besides money, public pressure is the best tool to use. Say it with me now. Staying silent is violence, and doing nothing is lethal. How do you have the conscience to watch them murder innocent people? If you know people are dying, and there's something that you can do, it's not only selfish but evil to sit back cause it's inconvenient to you.
The thing is, I have no idea myself to tackle this issue. I have no idea how foreign policy activism works. So I don't want to shame people who are trying to spread awareness over a topic that is as intimidating and scary as this one, but sometimes I do feel icky about the way that people are sharing this information. Like, I understand that you want to bring public pressure, right? Want everyone to know about it, that's what you said in the video. But why did you have to make a sing-along out of it? Making sweet, fluffy songs about genocide just feel wrong. I feel like you can seriously talk about a topic and make it palatable without making it, like, cutesy and fun. It seems very insensitive to change the tone of a topic like this into cutesy and fun rather than serious. And then the video about making the free Uyghur Muslims into the top video, like, he didn't provide any information about what's happening or who he's talking about. It was just, get my video on top of the world or of TikTok, and I just feel like that's weird. It feels really weird and empty to make a video about a topic and then not talk about the topic at all in your video and just like let music play. It feels obvious that there's good intent there, but it does feel tone deaf. I feel like the tones of these videos do not match the seriousness of the atrocities that they're talking about. But then again, I wonder if there should be a space for performative activism, because she was able to cover a lot in her song. Awareness is awareness, and I feel like if the information is correct, then it could do a lot to push people in the right direction. You know, if a very young person is seeing this for the first time, they could take this, internalize it, and realize that it's actually something that should be talked about. Sometimes the bare minimum is needed to like provide that foundational work for activism. I feel like a lot of times we go too quick into like theory and like using really big words, and that really makes people like turn away from talking about serious topics. Sometimes the bare minimum could be a good choice because it can push people and like, you know, lean people into the right direction, even if it's weird and corny and tone deaf. I mean, this could be the wrong take, but I don't know, sometimes it may be useful. But I do think that white women need to stop terrorizing people with ukuleles. Like, white people need to drop that at the door if they're trying to come up to protest, you know, like, just keep them in your own house or don't use them at all, whatever. And the comments under these videos I feel like are even more concerning. There's a thing on TikTok comment sections where people will try to use spam to trick the algorithm. People will fill the comment section with spam so that the video will have more engagement and be shown on more feeds. And this is a very common tactic used on videos about social justice. So in order to boost the video, people will spam the comments with like frog emojis or just random sentences, because the algorithm apparently responds the most to emojis and longer comments. And I recently saw the TikTok creator, Stacey's mom, talk about this in regard to the Asian American hate crimes.
If you're one of those people that's turning the names of the victims from the Atlanta shootings into spam comments and just spam commenting their names and putting the victims on the same level as those stupid fucking Lana Del Rey is coming kind of spam comments, I don't appreciate you as much as you think I do. And I can guarantee you that other creators, especially East Asian creators, feel the same way, because any bit of gratitude that I have that you're trying to boost my video and do a good thing by doing that is overrun with annoyance of the fact that you are turning victims of a hate crime into some sort of trend in the comment section of TikToks. If you want to boost a video, why don't you just talk about the video that you just watched? Why don't you start or add to a conversation? That is the point of our videos. That's what we want you to do, not just spam. If you get butthurt over this video because, oh, I never thought about the comments in that way, that's the problem.
I think the thing that she's talking about in the video is when people will use the names of victims in any type of like violent crime and will spam comment that on like videos that might have nothing to do with the Asian hate crimes or whatever hate crime or whatever crime happened. So they'll have like the list of the victims on a random video about like dogs, and it's really weird. And sometimes I do see it on videos about the actual topic, so it'll be about the Uyghur Muslims, or it'll be about the Black Lives Matter thing, or it'll be about just anything that's going on, and people will be like, OMG, I dropped my glitter in the comments, or OMG, what about my frogs? And they'll put like a bunch of frogs or something. And I'm not gonna lie, I've done this once, and I commented like, oh my god, algorithm, and I dropped a bunch of glitter in the comments. Which, I'm looking at that now, and that's like so lazy of me and tone deaf of me. I couldn't even take the time out of my day to talk about what was happening in the video and to, like Stacy said, and engage in the conversation, because I didn't know what else to do. And I really was like, oh, I'm making a difference by doing this, but I really don't think I was, or that was really doing anything. And that's what I kept seeing during that time, like over the summer, and still now, where people will be like, oh my god, boost boost, and then just talk about random crap in the comments, like, what's your zodiac sign, or what's your color? And it's so weird and tone deaf that we're doing that. I understand wanting the most amount of people to see a video and trying to spread awareness, but if you do it like this, the tone of it is incredibly offensive. Activism and fighting for something cannot be a joke. People are paying for their existence and having really scary, serious consequences that are probably beyond what a lot of privileged suburban kids can think of. And I think that's where most of the problem lies, is that people who have no concept of death or hate crimes or racism or whatever are trying to speak out against things that they might not have a full understanding of. It's a fish out of the water type thing. If this is your first time being introduced to certain events or concept of systematic oppression, and I think for a while your job is just to sit back and listen, or it may always just to be sit back and listen and amplify voices. Gen Z are again conflating virality with activism. So maybe taking a strict stance on an idea that you just found out about is not the best idea. I'm seeing scary parallels between the Stop Asian Hate movement and the Black Lives Matter movement. I'm seeing young activists try to make people engage in the conversation, but are making things way worse. Like with the Asian hate crimes, there's some videos circulating around the internet of Asian people getting brutally attacked, and people insist on sharing it without prefacing that they're doing that or having some type of warning. I've seen a lot of Asian people talk about the pain that they experience seeing the video and how it makes them uncomfortable that people are sharing it so freely on the internet. I think that some people think that activism is just spreading awareness, and spreading awareness is just traumatizing marginalized people on social media. I saw this a lot during the Black Lives Matter movement last year, where people were posting that horrific 9-minute video of a man dying and making it seem like it was just cute and fun to just share that everywhere without thinking who can see it. Just because your white friends need to see it and they need to be educated does not mean that my black behind needs to be traumatized every single time I open someone else's story. I get the push to share things as fast as you can so that more people can see it and more people can talk about it, but seeing a bunch of videos like this just ends up desensitizing people to saying really terrible, awful things. A lot of privileged activists just don't even think about what it means to share a video like this, and I think that's one of the cons of growing up with the internet. People in this generation have terrible attention spans. We love instant gratification. We grew up on Google and Twitter, so I think a lot of Gen Zers expect this with activism too. If you put out something, then you expect immediate change. A lot of us are scared and really want change to happen immediately. And sometimes immediate action can be taken, but you cannot allow your impatience to outshine people who need change the most or their feelings. You may think that sharing a video of someone being hate crimed or brutally killed is the best course of action, but you have to consider how it would make someone feel to watch that video and see someone who looks like them being violently attacked. Like, yes, I want black people to get liberated, but I don't want to watch a 9-minute video of a black man getting killed to make that happen. I think the most important thing to do is simply just to consider your tone and how loud you're being. If you are talking over a marginalized group that you're supposedly fighting for, then you need to check yourself. If you are joking and making fluffy comments about people being murdered or fighting for their lives, then you need to check yourself. And I get it, it's really hard to understand the depth of a conversation when you're a kid and you're being introduced to things for the first time, specifically when it's not about you, like if you had to be taught about the specific concept instead of experiencing it at first hand. And I know American society is obsessed with child prodigies and wants everyone to start working at 11, which definitely carries on to activism. So when you see activists like Malala or Emma Gonzalez or Deja Fox, people always talk about how crazy it is how young they are and they're making a difference. But if you look at what those people have gone through, the horrific events that got them into activism in the first place were no walk in the park. I feel like sometimes my peers see them doing what they're doing and look at them with admiration, but sometimes like jealousy or guilt. Like, oh my god, I'm 17, I haven't won a Nobel Peace Prize. But I don't think child activists should be looked at the same way as like a Mark Zuckerberg or a Steve Jobs, you know, people who made businesses at a really young age and like, you know, became a billionaire at a really young age. The stuff that they've gone through is devastating, and there should be no reason why people are rushing into learning about these things or what members of your own community are going through. So you really have to consider your role in the conversation and if you're taking up too much space. Also check your intention, because if the only reason why you're in activism is because you want to live up to this Gen Z persona, then you need some work.